day, everyone. My name's Jeff Young, Western Regional Project Coordinator with Skills Canada, Newfoundland and Labrador. And today I have Nicole Travers here with us to speak about some of her creations. So Nicole, I'll have you give us a little introduction of yourself.
So my name, well, you know my name, it's Nicole Travers. I grew up in the Bay of Islands, a little hamlet called Little Port on the west coast of Newfoundland. I lived away from Lark Harbor for 20 years, and in 2017, I just recently moved back. I am a beader artist, I guess. I just say a beader myself, but a beadwork maker or a bead artist. And I've been creating for about 6 years, self-taught for the most part. I mean, you do learn tips and tricks of the trade as you go along, and as you chat with friends and other beaders and things. And then last summer, I had seen it in the past, and there's an Anishinaabe woman on Instagram who shared tutorial on how to create leather from fish, so from fish skins. And last summer I started down that road, and I just can't get enough of it. I've tanned 4 different types of fish skins. So mackerel, cod, eel, and salmon. And I have examples of here. So once I've tanned the fish skin, I'll turn it into a piece of art, really. I'll do contemporary, but with a traditional twist style beadwork on the fish skin itself. I've got an example here in my ears. I'll take them out. So this was done on salmon skin. And the nice thing about the salmon skin itself, as it's tanned, you see the scales, and it looks, I'm not sure how well that's coming out there. There we go. So this is a replication of a petroglyph that's found, I believe it's on the Bedford Barrens in Nova Scotia. It's a Mi'kmaq double curve. I've created them on the vamp of moccasins before. And then I've done replications of petroglyphs, and then a representation of the waves on another pair of earrings. And this one is a codfish skin.
Wow, that's so nice.
There we go. Yeah, so the Bedford Barrens 8-pointed star, and then my version of, I guess, waves. I mean, we're so intrinsically tied to waves here on the island, right? And then besides the fish coming out of the ocean and the water.
So what inspires you to create these things?
I like having... So for me to start with, you mean the leather itself?
Yeah, what was...
Well, my father was a fisherman, and I come from a family of fishermen on my father's side. And we usually would fillet the fish, and my grandmother would like to fry the fish if it was a fillet with the skin on. She said if it was really fresh, the fish would fall apart. But my father always liked to skin them, and then they'd just go back, and the gulls would eat it, and it'd go back down on the beach, and, you know, back into nature, I guess, back into the circle. But knowing that we as Indigenous people can take items and use everything that comes from an animal, and having that, I'll say, an honorable harvest where we're respecting everything that fish had to offer us at that time, why not take the skin and turn it into a usable piece of material? Like this is a codfish skin here, and you can see the codfish has that distinct black line that runs. So this would have been where the gill is, and the black line that runs down, right on down through to the tail. This is a nice fillet. I mean, years ago, the fillets were much larger. So to take it and tan it and then have it as a tangible item, to me, it just makes sense.
Yeah. So what the main question, I guess, how do you tan it?
Okay, so that's a very good, interesting question, because I mean, a lot of times you look at the fish skin and it's very thin, and it looks like it's very delicate, but fish skin itself, before it's even tanned, is really, really tough. I mean, on the outside, you have a layer of pretty much armor with the scales. So when you start and you have the meat taken off of your skin, you'd have to descale it, but you also, on the inside of your skin, you want to make sure that all the meat is removed. And depending on the type of skin itself, because mackerel has that really nice sheen and it's almost like a metallic or a iridescent-y type finish to it, but that is a membrane that sits inside of the skin that has to be scraped off as well. So on a codfish, you might have the black. You'll see on the inside there's black. So you want to make sure that everything is removed, and because that is what would actually rot the skin itself. So once that's done, you have it all nice and clean. You wash it in cool water with some soap, because you want to take all the natural oils out of it, so that you have just the skin itself, the dermis. So then you have to replace in the skin itself with tannins. I was taught, and the way that the individual Amber on Instagram taught it, was that you replace it with tannins from tea. So this is actually tea dyed with tea, tannins from tea, and you start with a very low concentration of tannins. So each day you would create a mixture of tea and let your tea cool. Put your skins inside. They're all nice and clean. They're degreased, and you. Every time I walk by, when I have a container of skins tanning, I'll have a little spoon there and I'll give them a stir to make sure that the skins separate, so that the tannins equally distribute amongst all over the skin itself. And you change the mixture out, or your tannin mixture out, once a day. And when you start your mixture, you start it at a lower concentration. So I would start with 5 tea bags, and then every day increase it. And then by the time you get about a week, these skins are going to be sitting in solution for a week. You're up to 20 tea bags. And after the first day, the skins really start to change, and the feeling of the skin starts to change. And so once they're finished and they're ready, they're wet. I actually have an eel skin here. I have a bag of skins, and you can still see the water inside, but this is eel skins. This eel skins I did last time. Then you have a wet, like I could still bring water out of this. It needs to dry, and it needs to be stretched. So that's the inside. So this one's an eel. This was these skins were given to me by a gentleman, Ivan White, out of Flat Bay. I had asked him. I said, Ivan, hey, are you going to be catching any eels this year? He said, yeah. I said, would you mind saving some for me? He was like, what do you want to do with that? And I said, I'm going to tan them. He was like, all right, sure. So now I owe him one, because he gave me a beautiful bag full of eel skins. So as they dry, it becomes a little stretchy. As you can see, it stretches this way and then that way. Like, I'll just keep playing with it back and forth, back and forth. And as it dries, it gets like paper. And just like any other hide or any other leather that you're working to break into a tangible material that you want to work with, it has to be broken, and fish skins are no different.
Yes.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yes. Sorry. So how does this tie into your identity and your culture, doing this work?
Well, I said before that my father's family they're a line of fishermen, and as far back as I can recall, they've always said, oh, my father, my grandfather, my great-grandfather, they were all fishermen. So with that, I feel that I have that connection and that tie to the fishery. And I mean, I grew up on fish, and I grew up always having it in the house. And it was, you pass a fish plant and you go, oh, it stinks. And it was always told, you know what, though? It's the smell of the money that comes in our house, and it's the smell of money. So don't ever say that fish stinks. But it was also kind of with it's a way to immortalize my family heritage at the same time, because it's honoring the animal that has given its life to us to be able to sustain our own food, or to help us live and for us to continue. And instead of tossing it in the garbage, or it's got so many other properties that we can use to help honor it. And as a beater, I mean, there are lots of things that you can beat. Anything that you can think of, you can beat. As long as you can get a needle through it, you can beat it. And when my father passed away, he was the last line on that. Like, my grandfather only had one son, and neither myself or my sister fish commercially anyway. I mean, you go out for the food fishery, but I guess it's a way for me to immortalize that fishing lineage as well. And then as an Indigenous woman, I think it's an honorable thing to do too, is to teach my girls, like, hey, we're going to eat the fish, but guess what? Mommy's going to make earrings out of the skin.
Yeah, that's very nice. I like that. So I guess, what are some skills you've learned, some essential skills you learned since you started doing this?
Patience. You cannot rush this. And that if something happens, like when I did this last batch of eel skins, one of the things that I did learn was making sure that you have enough room so that the skins can swell up, because they get a little bit larger. Like, this is 2 eel skins here, and you can see the size of them. Okay. Like, it's a handful of leather, right? But if I were to take 2 eel skins that weren't tanned, they'd just barely fit into my hand because they're so small. They haven't, the skin texture completely changes. So when I'm tanning, I want to make sure that I have a container big enough, because when I was doing these, I didn't do that. And I actually had to change the container partway through, because the skins were folded over on themselves so much that areas of them weren't getting tannins. So I had to leave them an extra couple of days. So, I mean, every time I do something, it's a learning curve.
Yeah.
As well as, who knew eels had so many scales?
Oh, interesting.
I did not know. No. And as you work it, you realize, oh, it's like paper. It's soft enough. And then you leave it a day or two, and then you go back and you give it a good scrub or a good roughing. And then you go, wow, this is such a beautiful leather. It's so soft and so supple. And
it's so impressive that it's so strong.
Oh, man, is it ever? If you were to take, I'll say a moose hide, because moose hides are fairly tough, right? But make it as thin as a fish skin. So an eel skin is fairly thin in compared to a salmon skin. Salmon skin is, the thickness is a little bit thicker, not that you can really tell on here, but the fish skin would be actually tougher and harder to rip than the moose hide if they were the same thickness. Wow. And it has to do with the uniformity of the way that I want to call it material, but it's not material. The way that the fibers are growing. And I don't know if you can really tell here.
Yes, they're a lot. I guess it's a lot closer.
It is a lot closer, but you see, and you might not be able to see it, but if you were to size it up, it looks like all the fibers went in one direction, and then the next layer of fibers, when they lay on top, they overlap this way, and then you may have another layer that runs in another direction and another direction. It kind of reminds me of fiberglass, the way fiberglass is when it's put together. And hide, moose hide or deer hide, it doesn't have that property. It's just kind of a random put together, right? And well, I mean, I can't rip this, but I can't rip the salmon skin either.
That's amazing. You would think.
Right? Yeah. And they say it's waterproof. I haven't tested that yet, but the salmon skin is waterproof. Now, as I'm breaking it, I have to re-oil it. So myself, you can use anything, but I use a bear grease that was harvested from a hunt.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
So what advice would you give to young creators?
If you don't mind using a few tea bags, I would give it a shot. And I mean, years ago, tea was it's a staple in almost every home. And if you plan on doing, I'll say 5 or 6 skins at a time, nothing more, because in all honesty, it takes a bit of time. You think the most of the work is done when they're tanned and they're in this state, but to dry and stretch and break this one eel skin will probably take me another 2 to 3 hours.
Wow. So it's time
per eel skin. So if you plan on doing some, to anybody who wants to start doing it, don't do too many at once. Only take on what you can handle. And if you want to take your time, bag it up and toss it in your fridge. It'll keep. It's just wet hide, yeah. And if you're really unsure, toss it in your freezer. But give it a shot. I mean, you don't know until you try. And work the skin and work the skin and work the skin, and it softens right up. And you'll be surprised at how tough these things are. I have ripped them, yes, but codfish is a little bit easier to rip. Mackerel is easy because it's so paper thin.
Okay, yeah.
Right? It's so thin. You can almost see a translucency to it. When it was cleaned, it was actually transparent, and the only so the tannins, the tea tannins, is what made it opaque. But yeah, I mean, I could rip this because it's like paper.
Okay, so it's much thinner.
Yeah, yeah, but absolutely, it's unbelievable when you look at it. Like Jeff, I'm excited to show you.
Yeah,
I really am.
find out how you do it. And
Yeah.
I believe people can be interested to see the process.
Yes.
So I guess you already your business already kind of had a virtual presence.
Mm-hmm.
But since COVID started, did you find anything more challenging to bring your product online?
So was it more challenging
To display your products online or to do anything?
With the salmon skin itself to display online? The pictures never do it justice. Okay. Never. And I always try to take really complimentary photos to the items themselves. And if somebody were to order something from me and they didn't get to actually see it by the time, like, I'll do some face-to-face sales. Say if you were to order something from me, and Jeff, sometimes we cross paths, and you would say, oh, I like the earrings you have in. What kind of skin is that? I've never seen that before. And I, tell you about it. Many people who receive the item through mail are so pleasantly surprised because it's so unique. But I would say capturing the beauty is probably the most difficult part. And you'll probably notice I'll do a lot of close-up photos because then you can really see what that skin actually looks like. And because that's the only thing that I could say is even looking at from this view here for me, I can see that texture and that difference. Anyway,
be able to hold it, I guess, makes all the difference.
Yeah, it really does. It really does. Yeah.
If somebody wanted to buy your products, where could they go?
I've got a Facebook presence, at Blomidon Beadwork, and I have an Instagram presence at the same name.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I guess that's all. I guess if anybody wanted to check you out or ask you any questions,
Yeah, absolutely.
and I'd like to really thank you for joining us today. And I'm sure we'll be chatting again in the future.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff.
Bye now.
Bye.